Well, now that I've told you all that and you have a lot of stress, we're going to talk about stress. That's no fair. Well, here's the connection. Stress raises the body's stress hormones, but it also unbalances the whole hormone system in the body. And thus it starts to increase central obesity. By central, we mean amount around the middle. And it increases cardiovascular disease. Just this stress, psychological stress, and it increases diabetes quite dramatically. In fact, type A personalities have more diabetes than type B personalities. And so stress is a major factor. I've talked about how diabetes increases with weight gain. But why does diabetes increase with weight gain? You see, when the fat cells start to get fatter, they start deciding they're full and they don't want any more sugar. It's like you've made a big meal, you've eaten a big meal, you're all filled up, and you go to visit your neighbor, and when you go to visit your neighbor, they are making a big meal. And you walk in, they say, "Oh, so glad to see you. Please come in. We just made the best family dish we've ever made. It's just like my grandmother used to make. You've got to try some. Here." You're going, wait. I'm full. I didn't come over to eat. I'm sure it's good, but I don't want any. And they go, "Oh, come on, just a little bit. Just I'm full. I'm sorry." And that's what the fat cells say. They say, "I'm full." And this happens to fat cells. This happens to muscle cells, which accumulate fat as well. And pretty soon, the diabetic can't get any sugar into the cells. The pancreas starts making more and more insulin until the pancreas gives up. It burns out. It says, "Okay, I've had it." And it quits. And then you're in big trouble with a burned out pancreas. Let's look at this on a physiology chart for a minute. Here's a capillary. A capillary is the smallest blood vessel in the body, so small that only one red blood cell at a time can go through it. Every cell in your body sits on a capillary. For example, here's a normal cell. This normal cell will sit right here on the capillary where it can put its insulin receptors down in the bloodstream. Insulin can come along and bind to the receptor, and the sugar moves into the cell. Well, let me just go over that again. You know, insulin receptors are like doorknobs. Insulin is like the doorkeeper. When there's a doorknob, insulin can grab the doorknob. When it grabs the doorknob and opens the door, sugar can go through the door and go into the cell. Well, you notice I didn't put all the receptors down in the bloodstream where they could be attacked or opened by the insulin. And that's the way the cell regulates how much sugar it gets. If it wants more sugar, it puts more insulin receptors into the bloodstream. If it wants less sugar, it pulls them back in. For example, here's a very overfed fat cell. Notice that all the insulin receptors have been pulled up inside the cell where they won't be reached by any insulin. The door has no doorknob. We can't open it. So the insulin accumulates in the bloodstream and the sugar accumulates in the bloodstream, and you have high blood sugar and high blood insulin. On the other hand, we have a diabetic, let's say, who has this problem, and they start exercising, they start moving, well, when they start exercising, the cell gets hungry. It puts all its receptors down into the bloodstream. Insulin can come and bind to the receptors, and the sugar moves in to the cell. What did I say made the cell hungry? Exercise. That's right. Now let's look at glycemic index. This is an important concept for diabetics to understand. Glycemic means sugar. Index means comparison. Glycemic index goes like this. Sugar has a glycemic index of 100, meaning it's 100% like sugar. Well, it really means that the blood sugar goes up 100% as fast as pure sugar would make it go up. So sugar is like sugar. Cornflakes and milk have a glycemic index of 93, meaning that when you eat cornflakes and milk, the blood sugar goes up 93% as fast as pure sugar. High glycemic index foods raise blood insulin and sugar levels very high. So they took a bunch of rats. Does that look like a skinny rat? It's like a pretty fat rat, huh? They took a bunch of rats and they fed them a high glycemic index diet, foods that would make their blood sugar go high fast. Within 32 weeks, these rats developed marked obesity. You ever seen a fat rat running around out in the neighborhood, out in the countryside? No, you don't see fat rats in nature. If there is one, the eagle sees him first, right? Aha. Gets him. That's right. And when they fed people a high glycemic index meal, they ended up eating a larger volume of food. In fact, if you eat high glycemic meals, your stomach volume will actually expand. Your stomach gets bigger. And they felt less satisfied. Well, that's a scam. More food and less satisfied. What's more, they got hungry sooner and went and got some more of that food sooner. Ooh, that sounds like an addiction. It is. Now, there's another concept that goes with glycemic index, and that is glycemic load. By load, we mean how much of it you took. Small load versus large load. High glycemic load foods include things like, well, what's this? Corn chips. Cheese nachos. Well, why aren't they whole grain? Corn chips. You know, I have a video at home on how they make corn chips. They take and grind up the corn, make it into cornmeal, put it in big vats, and boil it and boil it and boil it for more than 24 hours. The longer you cook a food, the higher its glycemic index becomes. And so it's very high glycemic index food. Now, why do we have a hamburger and hot dog here? I thought those were like protein, not high glycemic. Well, if you look here, there's a white bun, and there's white potatoes, highly cooked, and so you do have a lot of carbohydrate there, and it's very refined carbohydrate, and so it is a very high glycemic load meal. And we have our colas and our pop, soda,